Okay, I've got 9 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with agenda review. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes or additions this morning.
Move approval.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Commissioners' reports on committees. Who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay, good.
I want to argue over it, you know. Our last meeting was October 7th, where we met here at the courthouse, and then afterwards had our luncheon meeting at the Boat Landing Restaurant and Resort on Madison Lake. And then the next day, October 8th, I went to the Region 9 Development Commission full commission meeting. Typically now that's held in the Mankato room over at the Mankato Intergovernmental Center. And we usually have about a 2-hour meeting. We covered a lot of routine business items. We heard staff reports and also had a presentation from a man named John Murphy. He's a consultant through the Mayo Health Systems regarding destination medical centers and their impact on the community. And so talking a lot about the Mayo and how they're really becoming a destination place for health and all the spin-offs that occur in those regions. The Region 9 Director, Nicole Brunswick Mickelson, she also spoke at length regarding the MINRA changes, Minnesota Area Agency on Aging. And they will be taking on, which I had mentioned before, more of a 501c3, internal structure change. And this will happen over the next year, which will create a relationship change between Region 9 and MINRA. So. And then on Thursday the 9th, we attended the mayors and clerks in Pemberton. And I like that Pemberton Main Street Plaza that they took that old school and reconditioned. Doug Bear, who's the mayor there, is not seeking re-election. And I found out there also that Doug Westfall and Mayor, who's the mayor of St. Clair, and Jim Swanson, who's the mayor of Mapleton, that all three of these, and I don't know if there's another one anywhere in the county, is there? Do you know, Will? Those three are not seeking re-election.
Sure. Yeah.
So we wish them well and thank them for their years of service. Yeah, let's see here. We had our work session on the 14th. 16th, Thursday, I attended a meeting with DHS, Immigration Refugee Services, and a few local leaders from the Sudanese community and Somali group here down at the Blue Earth County Library, just sharing concerns and talking about some of the resettlement issues that they face here in Greater Mankato. And then on the 19th, I attended festivities regarding the Mankato Marathon. I don't know if anybody else got to attend any of it. A lot of people. And we also hosted a runner in our home over the weekend, so it's fun. And then yesterday met with physical plant director, county administrator, local contractor in Vance down at the 227 South 5th Street just to gather some more information regarding future planning for that property. That ends my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Lance?
Well, after our last board meeting, we had a meeting with the Greater Mankato Diversity Board, and at that point we voted to split our ties with the Rochester Diversity Board. Greater Mankato Diversity has been at it for 10 years now, and because of different issues we decided that we would go at it on our own. On October 8th, I had a Corrections Advisory Board, and then later that afternoon I met with Dennis McGran and a lobbyist along with Commissioner Purvis and who else was
I think Josh was there.
Questions. I know him,
Yeah.
but I can't say his name.
Josh.
Josh. I apologize, Josh. Anyway, on October 9th, I had an AMC Futures meeting, and that was interesting because it highlighted the county ambassador program that our own Jesse Beyer started, and that was kind of nice to be able. It kind of made you feel proud that Blue Earth County did as well with the ambassador program, and a lot of other counties really want to do that. I've had a lot of discussions with other commissioners now, and they're in the process of contacting our county, and they're going to contact our county to see how that was arranged and how that was done. So, good job, Jesse. Then October 10th, I again had the Futures meeting in the morning, and in the afternoon I had an AMC Executive Board meeting. On October 14th, we had our work session, and then I had a Children's Museum Board meeting at noon. On October 16th, we had an intergovernmental meeting with the City of Mankato. October 17th, I had an AMC Board of Directors meeting. On October 18th, with my wife, we did a walkthrough of Williams Park. And I was impressed. I think the county, I could see that there's been some recent clearing, but the park, I think, looks fantastic. And then we also came back, and then my wife and I walked around the house across the street here, our rental house. Then yesterday I set up a meeting with Commissioner Campbell, Bob Meyer, Tim Edwards, and we did a walkthrough of that rental house to get more of an understanding of what's going on there. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
Just a few things. Yeah, we had after mayor and clerks, and then Kip and I went on the 8th of October up to Micah, up in St. Paul, and various issues were discussed, and then you had kind of the political overview of what people are trying to prophesize, or whatever, how that's prediction, how it's going to turn out this fall with the legislative makeup. And then October 14th, we had our work session, and then on the 16th, I had a Partners for Affordable Housing board meeting, and with the City of Mankato and the EDA, Patty Ziegler, we did get a bunch of grants, community development building grants to remodel, well, actually, and do quite a bit of work with our shelters, 2 shelters. So expensive stuff like bathrooms and kitchens and stuff. So that was great. So, and that really,
Okay.
I saw at the marathon. I did see up at the field house. And Dick Beardsley was there, so I caught that. But kind of interesting. But that concludes my report.
Great, thank you.
Well, after our last board meeting, I also, as Mark mentioned, was up at Micah. It was a good meeting up there. A couple days after that, I mentored some East kids out at the shop. There's 3 young guys that came out. They were, I think, in 9th or 10th grade, and kind of wanted to walk around the shop and see what it was to get into the auto repair business. So that was kind of an interesting program. They were only there about 90 minutes. Usually when I mentor or work with these kids, they come for a whole week. But
Change the oil or anything for you?
Nope. They just, that was my question. What do I need to keep them busy with? But this was just to basically show them what it is and what it consists of, and expose them to that environment. Then we had South Central, or SWCD meeting. Everything's going pretty well there. They just love their new equipment that we helped them finance. They said it's working out really well. They're just in the process of kind of calibrating it and understanding it at this point. They've got some farmers and some other landowners that want them to come out and read what's coming off of their farm. So I think this is going to work out really well. Jared's doing a great job, and I think he really wants to understand how it works and make sure he understands what it's going to do before he goes out and starts reading things. So we had a long discussion about the piece of equipment and how it was working for them. So again, I just want to relay that they're extremely excited about the equipment and how it's working.
Is that measure like what's dissolved in the water, different chemicals?
Chemicals, yeah, and
all that sort of thing.
runoff, and they can actually take spot readings, and he's got a pretty neat plan put together and how it's going to work, and they'll take rainfall into consideration, and it's very in depth. I think after he gets it up and running, he wanted to come back to the board and tell us how it's working. So maybe some work session we can invite him back and he can explain it better than I can.
That'd be great.
It's going to be a great tool for the
Yeah.
farmers, because none of them want the fertilizer and the chemicals going into the water. They want to keep it on their land. So I think if they know that it's coming from their property, that they'll take steps
Figure out how to keep it.
Yep.
to keep it there.
Costs money, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it'll work out pretty well. Mayors and clerks was already mentioned. Had a nice visit from Howard. Did a great job talking about Smiles. And it's going to be unfortunate to see those mayors leave, especially Jim as the president.
Yeah.
We're having a hard time getting that seat filled, but they'll deal with it. Then we had our work session. Good discussion there. Last week after the work session, I had to go to the MRCI auxiliary lunch. Great turnout again. All those volunteers that work so hard to raise several $100,000 for MRCI is just mind-boggling how you can sell stuff at $1.50 and generate several $100,000 a year. So a lot of volunteers that help run that organization. So I was up there as board president and relayed my appreciation from the board to them. I didn't have a chance to get the United Way event, but I would imagine it went off really well. My wife did supply the bars for it, so I would encourage. I didn't even get down to get one of her bars, but
They were very good.
I would encourage everybody on the board to make sure you get your paper turned in, which I have not done mine yet. But
The deadline Friday, Jesse?
This Friday.
Okay.
So, and I got mine on the desk, Jesse. So, then we had a good discussion at InterGov about some park stuff, some road maintenance overlay, and kind of gave them an update on what we're doing on County Road 12. They seem to be very excited about our extension on County Road 12. Karen was the only council member there, but she thought that's going to be a needed piece of road. So we
Yeah, that
had
was a
some
good-
interesting
good
discussion.
meeting.
Yeah, it was a good meeting.
Good discussion.
And I had to leave right at 8 o'clock, so I had to get back to work, and as I was leaving, Vance decided to bring up the 0.5% sales tax discussion. I managed to turn around and get right back and stop that, so.
Yeah, doggone it.
He was a little bit too quick.
I tried really to wait till you got
I
out.
wasn't far enough away. My ears work pretty good when you talk sales tax. So.
Good save.
It really was a joke. But
I know, it was good discussion, the whole meeting though. And then yesterday I was at my MVAC meeting, and we got a good piece of news, but sad for MVAC. John Woodrick is going to be retiring at the end of this year.
Oh, okay.
On January 31st. So it is going to be official. We were the first ones to know yesterday this is that board meeting that I'm actually just got on, because I'm the chair of our community support organization, so I'm on the board of directors and on the
Housing.
yeah, well, I'm not in the housing anymore.
Oh,
but,
okay.
this executive committee.
Yeah.
And when I talked to John about taking that chairmanship, I thought, well, how much extra meeting in it? And he told me, oh, it's only one extra meeting a month. The month that we don't meet for MAVC, it's that same Monday that we meet, and so it's once a month, and we don't even have them every time if there's no business to deal with. So we get there yesterday, and he tells us he's retiring, and then he comes with this timeline of several meetings now since we're hiring a new director of all the stuff that we get to do. And so after the meeting, he apologized. But it's good. I mean, I think I'd like to be part of that group of picking the new director.
Yeah. John Woodward, he's been there a long time now, hasn't
He
he?
has been there 35 years, and over the last
35
35 years, he has been the director. I don't know if it's in the letter here. I think he's been the director 18.
18.
Longest serving director.
As long as Fitzsimmons, I think, was one.
Yep, he was. Fitzsimmons, I think, was only 10. But
And I wonder how many people in this community really know all the stuff they do, because
Oh,
they do a
they do a
tremendous
lot.
amount of things.
So, I mean, John was is going to help us obviously through the process and try to find somebody else. It sounds like they might have a couple people internally that might be interested. So,
Yeah.
we're going to have a meeting in first part of November to discuss the parameters of how far we want to search. Just typical, same thing we did here, and same thing we did with Brian at MRCI. So, I've been through a couple of these, so it'll be interesting. But again, another long process, and you know, January 15th or January 31st will come up pretty fast. Then I just wanted to mention touring and manufacturing this Thursday, 12 to 6. This is the pant that I can pass it around quick, but I think, Mark, you did it last year. It was on Saturday. They changed it to a Thursday this year, thinking they could hit a few more people, so that is what it is. And Thursday at noon, and there's several Mankato,
Well, there's a, yeah.
in Mankato, I think there's one in Brown County, so look through that.
Wells Concrete's on there.
Is it? Okay.
Very good.
Cool.
And that brings me up to today, Mr. Chair.
Okay, good.
Nice.
Just got a couple of things that haven't been mentioned yet. On the 13th, I had the TDS budget meeting, 2015 budget. It's coming along quite well. Then on the 14th, after the work session, I stopped and visited with the folks at Crystal Seasons and let them know what's going on in the county. They continue to be a very engaged group. And then on the 15th, I stopped in at the United Way event. Very nice. The pumpkin bars were great. And then on the on the 16th, I had the TDS board meeting. So, and that brings us up to today. So, we have Mike.
Welcome, Michael.
Hi, Mike.
Morning, Michael.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Morning.
As you know, I'm Michael Stolberger, the County Assessor and Deputy Director of Taxpayer Services, and I am here with agenda item number 5 for you today, which is a repurchase application for 3 parcels of tax forfeited land. The property is located in the northeast corner of the city of Mankato off of Highway 22. The property has worked its way through the forfeiture process, and so it was going to be part of our next bundle of properties for sale, and we do have a request now for repurchase from the previous owner of that property. As you may be familiar from our previous repurchase request, the board has granted most tax forfeiture processes to the county auditor to administer. Repurchase is one option that we cannot pass to that office, so we need to come to the board for some action on these properties. The 3 parcels that are included in the request applications that are part of your packet describe properties that are all considered outlots in the subdivision when it was platted as a residential subdivision. 2 of the outlots are used for stormwater retention and runoff and management. The other parcel is a berm of property located along the roadway. As you can tell from the letters that were provided by the previous owner, the property, when it was platted, the intention was for it to actually be passed along to either a homeowners association or the city of Mankato. The city of Mankato has expressed interest in all 3 of the parcels, and the previous owner will work with the city of Mankato to transfer those to the city for stormwater purposes if the repurchase is approved today by the county board. So what I ask for you today, if you have any questions, is I will take care of those first. Otherwise, I would just look for a motion to approve the repurchase application for the 3 parcels.
Who was the previous owner then?
Previous owner was Drummer Development.
And then he is asking for the ownership again then, correct?
Correct, yes, so that he
the-
can actually transfer it to the
Okay,
city.
so it's the same individual that set up this subdivision at one time, and then the land kind of got lost, or, I mean? that's-
Correct, yeah. Yeah, there's been some difficulty in some of the platting that's occurred where parcels that should be transferred to the city haven't been getting transferred to the city. And then in this instance, the developer suggested in his letter that he had misplaced the tax statements and just failed to pay the taxes on those for several years. Now he wants to make right on those and pay the back taxes plus the penalties, interest, and fees, and then actually transfer them to the city appropriately.
Okay.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
I mean, everybody's a winner in this. I mean, he's
Yep.
paying all his back taxes and penalties. Mr. Drummer is a respected developer in the Mankato area, so I guess we all make mistakes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, Charlie?
Hi, Charlie.
Good morning.
Good morning, Charles.
Today we're bringing to you a number of replacement and upgrade projects for our IT infrastructure. First of all, I'd just like to say, what is IT infrastructure? Well, it's kind of the backbone of the entire county.
It involves all of our networking that goes between all of our buildings, networking that goes within our buildings. It involves a lot of the central core equipment that runs a lot of the computer systems that the county uses. So a lot of these systems that we're talking about are getting old, and we budgeted for replacement this year. So right now we're bringing to you 3 separate items, but they're all part of the overall IT infrastructure. So the first one on the list is for central computer server replacement. And I just might point out a couple things that are noted there. This is for hardware, software, and maintenance support. And this is for the central big computer servers that run most of the systems that the county uses. So this is not equipment in individual departments. It's equipment that sits in our central data center and runs a lot of the departmental systems that are used by individual departments. So as it notes there in the background, these servers were installed in 2011 with a 3-year projected lifespan. And right now they're at capacity. They can't be expanded anymore. They can't keep up with the demand that we have for additional server horsepower. So we had budgeted for replacement this year. And as it shows the process that we used, our staff came up with a set of specifications. We talked a lot with 4 different vendors just to make sure they understood what we were looking for, also to get their opinion on what current best practices were in the industry. So we ended up getting quotes from 4 different vendors, and Veris Corporation was ranked as the lowest responsible quote supplier. So for the central computer servers, our action requested today is that we approve the contract with Veris. It's a not to exceed contract or a maximum contract for the amount shown there of $67,464. And this amount is budgeted in the IT capital budget. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'll move approval.
Second it.
Okay, discussion?
Now can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I was just wondering, the last time, you mentioned that they were projected at a 3-year lifespan. What is it now? I'm just curious so we can know what to look forward to for probably most of us that will be here on the board. It's
We typically, for servers, we pretty much look at 3 years.
It is
because
still.
the technology changes so fast. So 3 years, it's possible they might run a little bit. They still run, it's just that they can't be expanded any further.
Efficiently.
They're just running out of gas for the demand that we're placing on them.
Okay.
We actually do have some other places where these things will be used within the county. So they can't run the central systems anymore, but we have a couple of other locations where they could still live on and provide some usefulness.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
Okay, we'll move on to the second one. This one has to do with central network equipment. Now, without going into too much detail, what do we mean when we talk about our network? Well, we've got miles of fiber optic cable that connect 5 different buildings in Mankato. And within those buildings, we have literally miles of copper cable that connect all the individual computers and pieces of equipment that are within those buildings. So when we talk about our network, we're talking about all of that cabling that ties everything together. And so what we're looking at here is central network equipment that is kind of the traffic cop for all of this stuff that we've got. So as it shows here, this project is for hardware, software, and maintenance support to replace our central, what we call core switches. Now, what are we talking about? All of this cabling is tied together with pieces of equipment that are just called generically network switches. We've got a handful of these switches that sit, once again, in our central data center. They're the heart of our whole network. They're kind of, like I said, the traffic cops that make sure everything's happening efficiently throughout the entire network that we just described. So as it notes here, those particular switches are about 8 to 10 years old. They have a much longer lifespan than the servers that we were talking about. But at 8 to 10, they're at the point now where they've been discontinued by the vendor. So hard to get support, hard to get replacement parts. They've lived a long, useful life. So as it says here, this project is going to replace those with new units that have up to 10 times the capacity of the old network switches. And I might point out there's a difference between capacity and speed, but that's maybe a discussion for another time. There's a lot more capacity that these particular units have. The other thing that we like about them is they've got a lot more backup and resiliency that are built into them. So if there is some sort of a hardware failure, it doesn't take everything down. they're much more, like I said, resilient when things happen like that. So, as it notes here, once again, staff developed a set of specs, worked with those specs, and talked a lot with 4 different vendors. 4 of those vendors supplied quotes. And once again, Veris Corporation was ranked as the lowest responsible quote supplier. So, once again, these items are budgeted in the capital budget for IT, and our action that we're requesting today is approval of the contract with Veris for $79,426. Once again, that's a maximum or a not to exceed amount.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
One last item. As it notes here on the last one, we're talking about professional services. What that means is it's the services of a company to come in and take these core network switches, get them configured, make sure they're working right, make sure they work in our situation, that type of thing. So we talked about the network. These are professional services to get all of those core switches set up and working correctly. Later on in November, we'll bring you a proposal for individual, what we call floor switches that are on each floor of, the various buildings that we've got. So this is basically a proposal just to go ahead and get professional services to get set up and get configured all of these switches that we're going to be putting in place or replacing within the next few months here. So you can see here that the same process was used, specs, quotes from 4 vendors, and Veris Corporation was the lowest responsible quote supplier for those as well. They're budgeted in the capital budget, and we ask that you move approval for the Veris contract of $33,705.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
At various corporations, where's that out of?
They're located in Fridley,
Oh, okay.
and we've worked with them since about 2009. They've done various networking projects for us and have done a great job. The other thing we like about them is they actually run their own data center in the Twin Cities where they rent space to other companies. So they know what they're talking about because they do the same work in their own individual business as well. So kind of nice to work with somebody that's experienced.
Okay. Okay, there's no other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
Great, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Charlie.
Charlie. Looks like we've got a couple minutes yet. Do we want to do some administrative services?
Sure. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes from October 7th of this year.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
Next up would be the bills.
I'll move the bills.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I've got just a couple here.
Okay.
Day plumbing and heating and cooling was $15,000. It's a waiver, non-taxable service of some sort.
That is a, excuse me, a bathroom modification. So this is a waivered service client in the Human Services Department, so we're making modifications to the home so that individual can remain in the home rather than go to a facility.
Oh, okay. That'd be similar probably for the Pet 2E for $30,000 then? There's a waivered, non-taxable.
Yes, that would be a similar situation.
Just curious, where do those funds come from? Are they grants or?
Those are federal and state dollars, Medicaid dollars. Under the waiver is a Medicaid waiver. It's designed to keep people out of nursing homes.
Oh, okay.
But the Pat Toohey one is different than that.
Well, it says waivered, non-taxable.
Yeah.
Well, that was some home modifications again. There was an elevator and widening of doors and those sorts
Oh,
of things.
Okay, that's what I was.
And then Brennan Construction says insurance deductible, $101,000 something.
That was the repairs of the Mapleton Highway Shop.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yep, I remember those. And then BCA, you've got equipment rental lease for $10,650.
That's a quarterly charge for our mobile data computers in the squad cars.
Oh, okay, interesting. And then Regents of U of M was $39,000. I was just wondering
It's again a quarterly payment for our agreement with the U of M for our extension services.
Oh. Okay. Thank you.
Just had-
Icon Constructors, the $405,000. What did they build for us?
That's work on the CASA 14 bridge.
Okay, thank you.
I just had Mary Kay Keys manpower salaries. That's the first week.
I believe Mary is working with our elections department.
Oh,
She's
so
a
they'd be part,
consultant
that's
there.
the part, okay. And then Staples Advantage, building, office supplies, it's like 10,400 some bucks there.
Those were some computer modules that we set up down at the library as part of that remodeling work
Okay.
down there.
And I just had one for the second, I think the second half. That's here. Maybe not.
Find that highlight?
Yeah, I did. I had it. I thought, that's how I knew there's other ones.
Yeah.
What happened to that one?
Do the same thing.
Oh, here it is, yeah. Fourth, infrastructure and environmental contracted services, about 18,000 plus. I just wondered, I knew that would be something.
That's part of the Ponderosa
Ponderosa, okay.
work that they do there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other questions? No other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bills are approved. Okay, we'll move on to planning and zoning.
Hi, George. Mark.
Morning.
George and Mark.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 17-14 is a request from Scott and Corley Borgmeyer. The request for approval for preliminary plat of Lakewood Drive Point, a 2-lot, 3-outlot subdivision located in parts of the southeast and southwest quarters of Section 3, Leray Township. The property is zoned rural town site and is within the Urban Fringe Overlay District of the City of Madison Lake and the Shoreland District of Madison Lake, which is a recreational development lake as defined by the DNR. Mr. Leary presented the staff report. The applicant was present and had no comment. The applicant's surveyor provided clarification on additional road right-of-way that would be dedicated to the township. This action will place Lakewood Drive more in the center of the right-of-way. He also commented on the positive impact the added right-of-way will have on the calculation of the buildable area of Lot 1. The surveyor also commented on the history of using the 10-foot property line setback in the calculation of the buildable area. The commission had a brief discussion on the components of the stormwater pollution prevention plan for the proposal. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval of the request to the county board, and the board action is a resolution.
Okay, I'll
Go ahead.
open the meeting for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on PC 17-14? If so, come to the podium, state your name. Is there anyone that would like to comment on PC 17-14? Last time, is there anyone that would like to comment on PC 17-14? Please come to the podium. If there's no public comment, I will bring it back to the board for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, is there further discussion? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I just have some questions. I know that you've probably been working on this a while, haven't you? I mean, these things don't just come through like
This was
that.
about a 2-year project.
Because I haven't heard a thing about it, but I just assumed after reading your reports and that it's been quite a process, probably, you know. It looks like it was a piece of property that was owned and had about 8 seasonal cabins on it.
Correct.
And then 5 are removed maybe over the years, or?
I believe, is it 5 or Mr. Sherman?
4?
now, 7 in another couple of weeks.
Oh, okay. But 5, there's 3 left anyway, I think is what the report said, I don't know. And then, of course, because it's in the shoreland, I'm sure you guys were looking at, you know, all the different issues that go along with water runoff and things like that. I do see that it was addressed in the stormwater plan, and I'm just wondering what some of the discussion was going forward, so that we, feel safe that it's going to be okay, because there were concerns raised by our water planner that works for the county, and I'm just kind of curious, what some of that discussion was, if somebody could highlight it, or.
Well, very briefly, in the stormwater management plan, they did modify that. If you recall, there from the delineated wetland, there's a 16 1/2, which is equal to 1 rod buffer protective easement. And initially, their erosion control measures were that the project's consultant, stormwater consultant, had. It showed those erosion control structures placed in that protective easement, and they have since modified that to show that the erosion control structures are outside, more landward of that protective easement to again provide further protection of the wetland area and runoff to the potential runoff to the lake.
Do you think? I mean, this is the flavor I got from it. You can confirm it if you want to or not, but. The flavor I got was that there's some benefit of removing some of these cabins that were down there, these older cabins, or at least there's some trade-off in runoff too, so that there's going to be 2 building sites created, what I understand. Well, you were there too, Kip. And so I felt like there could be some trade-off value looking at that whole thing when you guys were trying to assess it. I mean, that there's already some cabins here, now they're gone, now they're just going to put in 2 buildable sites, instead of having all these little cabins down by the water or whatever it might be.
Right, plus the extra protection they're doing with the other.
Yeah, and the hookup. Everybody's hooking up to the new sewer.
And that's been
community.
already.
That was probably
Yeah.
the gist of our conversation, was the trade-off. We're taking 7 or 8 cabins out of there, we're putting in 2 houses, they're hooked up to the sewer. There is some other landscaping that the landowner has been, planning to do,
Right.
so.
And so I recognize that value myself, trying to read the report. It's very, there's a lot of reports in there, or words to read, I guess is what look at it. But the question I do have is that I just want to at least say it and get it out there, is that our water planner had mentioned, that if there's going to be grading and filling, it's supposed to be submitted, a plan for that normally before the preliminary and final plat is approved. But I'm thinking there's a way in here that you're thinking that we're doing a benefit to the land, and they're doing some conscientious work, and so maybe we don't need to address that issue.
That has been discussed, a number of times with the applicant, and my understanding is that there will really be limited grading and filling there, and the filling will actually be within the confines of the foundation of the house, and there'd be very limited backfilling away from that, more in the driveway portion of the proposed development on lot 2.
Okay.
And so there will be very limited grading and filling there.
Okay. And this is the preliminary.
That's correct.
It's not the final.
Only preliminary.
So when he submits the final, I would assume that some of those will be looked over again, and some.
If there's any change, and I wouldn't anticipate a much of change, if any.
Okay. Because I know my thinking has been, and I know it's not necessarily always that popular, but when we have lakes that have been identified as impaired waters already, that I appreciate the work you put in looking at what's very best for the environment too. Because this lake, I know it's a recreational lake, but it's on the list of impaired waters through the MPCA and things like that. And so I really appreciate the fact that you put extra work into looking at that and doing what we can to protect the water. Because, we don't have that many lakes in our county that are, like this one, and it's a pretty nice lake. So.
Okay, any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, PC item 18-14 is a request by Nancy During for approval of preliminary and final plats of Bloom subdivision, which is a 1-lot and 1-outlot subdivision located in the agricultural zone district in the northeast quarter and the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of section 33 Decoria Township. Mr. Manderfeld presented the staff report. The applicant was present and had no comment. The applicant surveyor was present and indicated it was a simple plat where the applicant is attempting to split the farmstead from the remaining farmland. A neighboring farmer and feedlot operator asked for clarification of the plat and asked if there was a lot proposed for the second home. Staff indicated there was no additional development proposed with the plat. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward the recommendation of approval to the county board, and the board action is the resolution.
Okay. We'll open it up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to PC 18-14? Please come to the podium, state your name. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to PC 18-14? Please come to the podium. Is there anyone that would like to speak to PC 18-14? Please come to the podium. If there's no public comment, I will...
Oh, there you got one.
Oh,
I have a question. What are you referring to it on the schedule?
Could we have him come up to
yeah,
the...
come on up to the podium.
I just came in late and I'm wondering where we at.
Oh.
I can show you.
Okay.
Can you see the monitors up there? We're talking about that top item there, PC 18-14. It's
planning and zoning.
Yep, under the 930 item on my.
Oh, okay. Well,
Item
that's
number
all we
7.
need to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Good time to
I don't
ask.
see any of the numbers I'm looking
Okay, if there's no public comment, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
Thank you, George.
Thanks,
you,
George.
George and Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, we'll move on to the amendment to the Clean Water Fund Grant Agreement.
Thanks, Nancy.
Morning, Julie.
Morning, Julie.
Hello, Julie.
Julie?
It even sounds pretty, clean. Just clean water fund.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm here to request County Board approval of an amendment to a grant agreement with the Board of Water and Soil Resources. The County Board approved the grant in 2012 and it expires at the end of this year. The Board of Water and Soil Resources has approved a one-year extension of the grant, and they prepared an amendment revising the expiration date to December 31st of 2015. That amendment document is in your packet, as well as the original one that you approved in 2012. The grant is a $108,000 Clean Water Fund grant, and it's being used for development of a wetland protection and management plan. The one-year extension was requested because we experienced unanticipated delays in data collection. To prepare a wetland management plan, we are required to identify existing wetlands and prioritize potentially restorable wetlands. To identify existing wetlands, we use the National Wetlands Inventory as a critical place to start. And when we started working on the project, we learned from the Board of Water and Soil Resources that the DNR was going to be updating the National Wetlands Inventory soon, which turned out to be 2013, and we were told that data would be available early in 2014, and it still is not officially available, but we've been working with the DNR and we actually obtained the draft data on Friday, so we can begin using that. To identify potentially restorable wetlands, we start with topographic data. The county is working with consultants on a hydrologically conditioned digital elevation model, or a DEM. And we're on schedule with that, and it should be completed in just a few weeks. We use the conditioned DEM with GIS and existing LiDAR to identify basins where wetlands could be stored, and we can store water on the landscape. Last year, we used $32,000 of the grant funds for consultants to assess conditions of a sample of 75 wetlands. So we can use that to compare a range of conditions, and then compare that, a range of conditions of wetlands in the county, and then compare that to the National Wetlands Inventory. Our next steps then, we're forming technical teams and groups of citizens to represent broad interests. Begin work this fall and into winter. We will be prioritizing the wetlands using locally defined and science-based criteria. And we'll also be looking at adaptive management opportunities. So land and managers can use the information to consider potential sites for restoring wetland functions. We'll be working on a project website, additional meetings, and other opportunities for public input and information this winter. Grant funds will be used to support all of that work. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we move it, or do you want to have discussion first?
Let's move it and then have
All
the
right, I'll move
discussion.
approval of extending the Clean Water Fund grant
Second.
agreement.
Okay, now discussion.
Oh, does this impact the update we're doing also on our water plan for the county in
Yes.
some ways? Because I know that's also, our deadline for that is December of next
Correct.
year.
Correct, it'll be a large part of the county water plan.
Oh, okay, I was just wondering. And this could actually be something positive for looking at some of our redeterminations and doing some work with the ag drainage, if there's potential projects that'll help identify some of those areas, maybe where it's needed or not, you know?
Sure.
Don't you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, that would be part of the adaptive management.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks a lot, Julie.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay, I believe we're at 9:45. We'll start with the County Ditch 12 transfer public meeting.
Morning, Craig.
Morning.
Craig?
Morning, Craig.
I'm bringing up Kale, then Rugen. Okay, I want to make sure you get the name. He's actually from INS, from Rinky Noonan. And he'll be helping us, because this is new territory for me. I want to make sure that this meeting gets done correctly, so I've asked
Okay.
we asked him to be here.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to the hearing regarding the transfer of portions of Blue Earth County Ditch 12 to the City of Mankato. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the engineer's repair report and hear public comment regarding the transfer. We will start with the jurisdictional documents.
Okay, this hearing, the notice was mailed on October 1st, 2014. The hearing notice was published in the Mankato Free Press on 9/30/2014, 10/7/2014, and 10/14/2014. And that's it for jurisdictional documents.
Okay, now we'll hear from the city and the engineer.
Morning, Chuck.
Hi, Chuck.
You are the city.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm the engineer.
I know.
Chuck Brandel with INS Group. We put together a engineering report for Blue Earth County Ditch number 12. I do have a board. Maps are also in the report. It's an approximately 1,500 acre watershed, and it drains into what's called Wilson Creek. The city is proposing to take over approximately 2,000 feet of the very western portion of the system. The map that's in the report, this area is shown in red. It'd be from the area just south of Huffman Road, west of Highway 22. The proposal is to take over the ditch to the city limits, which is just on the east side of Highway 22, south of Huffman Road. We looked at the adequacy of the system. There are 2 culverts that are being proposed to be taken over. One at Hosanna Drive. The adequacy of that culvert is over 2.6 inches per day per acre for a drainage coefficient. The standard for open ditches is a 1-inch drainage coefficient, so that we deem that culvert's adequate. The crossing under Highway 22 is a 48-inch culvert. That capacity is a 1.25 drainage coefficient. That culvert should be adequate also. The portion that is being proposed to be taken over was cleaned last year. So as long as it is maintained, I think per statute, for transfer of a system, the transferee needs to maintain the system, or the municipality needs to maintain the system to provide adequate outlet to the areas, to the people benefited in the system. And currently, I'd say that it is being maintained, it has been cleaned, the culverts are adequate. So we'd recommend that that area be taken over. Any questions of the board?
Just for a point, so the water, when you look at this, it looks like it starts right there in that system. It actually flows to the east.
No.
It doesn't, it goes the other direction?
It flows to the west. So if you have the map up on the screen, there's the blue line that's shown on the map starts in a large wetland or slough area right there, and it drains southeast, and then it turns west, follows the ditch west, and then hits 22 and continues west and then turns south. The ditch ends right there, and then it becomes what's called Wilson Creek. And the city currently is maintaining that portion of the system. There are 2 residential developments that have been developed there, and there's 2 culvert crossings, which I'm very familiar with since I designed them a few years ago. But
so that's not considered ditch then, that Wilson Creek at all? It's a meandering stream or something?
It's a DNR public water.
It is, okay. That's why I was just curious why the red line just ended, because if the water was flowing that way, I thought the ditch would continue.
That's just where the legal ditch ends.
Okay.
So
thank you.
At some point there was a creek system. It has been manipulated in some areas, but that's where the ditch system started and now currently ends. So the city will take over that 2,000 feet of the ditch system, and the new ditch system will start on the east side of 22. There's currently a petition to annex some more property east of 22. We may be back again later if that occurs.
Okay.
Have you had experience doing these a bunch of times?
Transfers?
Yeah, transfers.
No, they don't happen very often.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty rare.
Okay, any other questions for Chuck? Okay, do we have anyone here from the city? Okay, there's no one from the city. We'll open the hearing for public comment. The hearing has been being recorded, so please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
I'm Gerald Roush, and did you want an address too?
Yes, please.
Okay, I live over by Cleveland. And anyway, I have the property that I believe is at the southern edge of what the city is proposing taking over. And what I'm concerned about is if the city wants to beautify it, which really would not benefit any drainage, just beautification, am I going to be assessed for their beautification through the city? And the reason I bring this up is because I think a year ago it was probably that there was some work done on Diamond Creek Estates or what, removed some trees, made it more beautiful, and I got assessed nearly $800 for that, and it didn't improve my property or drainage whatsoever. And I'm curious, if the city takes over, am I going to get bled to death with assessments that are of no benefit to me?
Can you answer that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I can't speak to what the city's intent is, but what I can say is that if this board approves the transfer, then the city becomes the water management authority under statute, and so they have to follow the drainage statute, chapter 103E, just like this board has had to follow. And to my knowledge, there's nothing in 103E that allows assessments to be made for beautification purposes. It has to be done for some kind of drainage benefit that those landowners receive. And the statute of this hearing requires that the city accept and guarantee that they'll maintain that benefit.
Well, that's nice wordage, but in simple layman's language, that means there's loopholes all over the place, that what you call beautification and what I call benefit are two different things. And that's what happened in the past. They maybe didn't call it, they call it maintenance. Well, maintenance can mean a lot of things. It can be mowing the grass, or it can be adding some things that doesn't benefit anybody but the person that's right there, and that's what I'm concerned about.
I doubt that the statute allows for addition of trees in a drainage ditch.
That'd be correct.
Yeah, but there's gotta be a benefit in order to assess somebody
Yeah.
a dollar amount. There's gotta be some benefit to that person. And if the person downstream or upstream is not getting benefited, that's unfair.
So essentially, if I hear you correctly, the same rules that the county has abided by, the drainage rules will apply, only the city will be responsible for administrating them. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. And maybe the ditch inspector can talk about what repair and maintenance is and what this board has done in the past for what constitutes repair and maintenance.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Craig.
Repair and maintenance, of course, the work we did last year was mainly there was places where the ditch is starting to meander. There was a couple outlets that were in poor shape. Just general, it had not been repaired for quite a while. Normally, if this had been a more rural ditch, we would have actually taken out a lot more trees. We had requests for people to leave trees, so we actually kind of worked around those. As far as beautification, we didn't put anything in for beautification on it. That's not, if the landowners want to do something, that's fine, but planting trees, we don't allow that. Like I said, normally we remove the trees entirely. But this is unique, it's in the city, there's people in their backyard, so we try to accommodate their wants as far as, not removing some of those trees, so.
Okay. Does that answer your question, sir?
Well, it doesn't really answer it, but you know what I mean.
We understand, we certainly understand what you're saying, yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe you can correct me too, but or to help clarify, I think, and I think you tried to, Will, was that if it's under this ditch authority for drainage purposes, that's what the ditch authority is for,
right.
Just for drainage purposes, it improves the land value so it doesn't flood, so to speak. It's supposed to help water drain from the land for agricultural purposes normally. Actually, now that the city will have jurisdiction there, they have to follow this chapter 103E, which means they cannot probably supersede that, from my understanding. They have to follow the state statute. And the state statute would say that everybody on that system, if there's any work done on the ditch itself, it has to be spread out amongst all the property owners according to what the value of their land is.
Mm-hmm.
And so by doing beautification, that would be a separate assessment that the city might do, like if they come into my neighborhood and decide to put in a wider sidewalk or those kind of things, they can assess anybody that if they want to.
Yeah.
And normally they meet with them, but because of this action, in one sense, it's actually maybe even protecting you, so that if they do any work on the ditch itself, it has to be spread throughout all the property owners, and there has to be meetings announced, there has to be public hearings and everything set up, just like we do with other ditch work, and that you would have a say-so as to why would you benefit from any work being done on the ditch. So in some ways, I'd almost see it as benefiting you, by them transferring this portion of the ditch back to the city, since it's inside the city limits.
See, you see things differently than I do, because I look at the water level. If somebody does some work over here and assesses me, I want to see the water level go down, not stay the same. So it has no benefit to me. And that's the agriculture part of it, that if we're going to benefit, we got to improve the drainage, not just the appearance of
right. No,
whatever.
I agree with that part.
I agree with
I maybe misused the word beautification, because to me, a ditch is a ditch. It don't,
Ultimately, though, your land would be worthless if it was underwater all the time, wouldn't it?
Well, right.
It'd be a swamp.
But that's what I'm trying to explain. The work that was done over there didn't lower the water table one iota where I am.
The
so
work
it
the
didn't
city did, you mean, or the work?
Well, the work
The
that
county
was done
did
last year.
it was routine maintenance work that we did, and we had a lot of discussion about
Well,
it, but
that's what you call it.
yeah,
But
and it didn't
it's of
change
no
your-
benefit to
Well, and it
the
didn't
ones
change, it
upstream.
didn't change your, benefit, it didn't, but it is maintaining the system, so you have at least the same drainage you have today. It didn't make it any better. That's an improvement.
Right.
We can't do that by law without a big process, so what we're doing is by maintaining that, and we cleaned it, and I'm in agreement with Commissioner Campbell that we need to still keep this under control, because I got more concerns about what if they let it grow over, and we need to be able to keep that thing clean so that you do have your drainage. So there will still be cleaning on it, but
See, the other thing is that this is right next to the new school property. Somebody already platted my property for me. We got lots in there, so any big expense that I'm going to have to get assessed for drainage is gonna be worthless in a few years, because it's gonna have storm sewers in there. You know, and the water will be going a different way, it ain't gonna be going down that creek. It'll be going down a storm sewer, and in the meantime, I'll be still paying assessments on something that,
You mean if that becomes city land over there or something on that side?
it sure will.
Yeah, I see what you're saying on that side, yeah.
Because I'm right next to the new school property, and
Oh,
like
okay.
I say, somebody already platted the
Right,
the thing for me, so
yeah.
it's all in the future.
You still need the drainage though, even if you get a storm sewer. I mean, you still need drainage. You need an
Oh,
outlet.
yeah, but it won't be used. I mean, I need it for agriculture purposes now, but as soon as it turns into a city, city development.
It'll just have a different purpose. They'll still need the drainage though. The water's
No,
gotta go somewhere.
Yeah, but it'll help the guys upstream, but not me. So why would I have to be assessed for it?
Well, you won't be assessed for an improvement if you don't get an improvement. I mean,
Well,
maintenance is different. I mean,
I
we gotta
did last
maintain it.
time. I did last time. I got
You got-
assessed without any improvement to me, no
Right,
benefit to me
for
whatsoever.
maintaining it.
No.
For maintaining it.
Now, by statute, repairs are, everybody pays for repairs, no matter where on the system. It could have been above you and they
I
get brought
I
down.
understand that,
That's
too.
repairs. Improvements are different. Only the people who benefit from the improvement pay for the improvement.
Yeah, but it depends upon, do they call it a maintenance or do they call it improvement?
Well, that's,
You know,
statutory.
that's-
If we're bringing it back to its original constructed condition, that's a repair. If we're making it deeper or larger so it can handle more water, that's an improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a difference.
Yeah.
I mean,
So maintenance I'd have to pay for it if they wanna trim it up and make
Right,
it, clean
right.
it up,
Just
make
keep
it look more
keep it from
beautiful in the
meandering
city
to normal.
portion.
Yep.
I'd have to pay even though it's no benefit.
Yeah, but that's something we'll keep an eye on, so if they're not trying to beautify it
Right,
at the ditch system's cost.
Yeah.
And we certainly
Yeah,
continue.
can't do that.
We
But
can
you know,
certainly-
I'll keep an eye on it too, but
And
it
you
ain't gonna do
appreciate
any
that.
good, but I'll keep my eye on it.
Yeah.
And we
Well,
could-
and the other thing too that
It's a
hasn't
good-
been
it's a
mentioned
good
here, but
point.
you can
It's a
correct
very
me if
good
I'm
point.
wrong, is that the city asked for us to look at this ditch, have our ditch inspector look at it, and have it, any repairs or improvements, whatever was required before it was transferred.
that's correct.
Isn't that correct? So
Yeah.
the city asked us to go in there, look it over, see what it might need, do the repairs before we would do any transfer action, so they could get a ditch in good condition, I guess is probably what would be.
They want to take it over in halfway decent correction. And there were some serious flaws with
Was
this.
there?
Yes.
Okay. So down the road, it would have filled up, or would have cost?
We would end up having to do a lot of those repairs even if the city wasn't taking it over. Eventually, it was a matter of time, but the city taking over just kind of pushed those
ahead,
costs
schedule.
forward, yes.
That's, okay. So hopefully there won't be much more else going on with it for quite some time.
I'm just in a tight spot because I'm between the city and the county, and
Mhm.
I'd sooner deal with the county. I've
Oh,
got
we-
experiences with the city and.
We need to keep the drainage, that's what I'm concerned
Yeah,
about.
yeah, keep it open.
That's the whole
I know some of
idea.
the drainage you're talking about, if they subdivide that land, they'll be required to do the new building standards when that becomes city land and put in water ponds, and the streets and the hard surfaces will be draining into those. But all the yards and all those kinds of things will still need some of that drainage going into there, and people benefit. But that'd be a city issue, then, I would think.
Yes, that's correct. Just a
To
point of
me,
clarification.
I see the only benefit to the city is gonna be a park, They're not gonna be concerned about drainage, but anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you
I say
very
my
much.
piece and thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Sharing your
comments.
concerns too.
Ken Wilmus here, 58-928, 211 Lane, Mankato. And I kind of had the same complaint he had. What they cleaned out there cost me $1,850, and it didn't help my property drain any better than it already was. And I don't know, I'm not 100% sure where you're talking about giving away. Could you bring that map up and show us?
you don't mind, I can
Yeah, show them right there.
Yeah, show right
Chuck.
there.
The portion to be taken over is this red line, so here's Highway 22.
Yep. Oh,
Just this piece.
okay, I thought that was already given to the city.
No.
No,
This piece here.
all right.
The
So
city-
that was the same one that we got charged for, was that piece right there.
The city can only take over what's in city limits. So currently the city limit line is this purple line here.
So where's the new city limit line gonna be when they build the school?
Good question.
We don't have any control over that.
No.
No, but it'll be here.
I guess.
It'll be the border of
You're dealing with, yeah.
Where is it gonna be?
right here. But that's not, has not been finalized yet. That's proposed at this point.
See, we live back here at the mouth of that ditch there, and we had severe flooding all back in there this spring when we had that heavy rain. And that ditch, I think it was dug in about 1908, and I don't think, to my knowledge, I'm the 5th generation to live there, and my dad's 80-something. He don't ever recall that thing being cleaned out. I'm thinking that that ditch should be repaired to its original depth all the way up, because it's just getting worse and worse and worse here. I have pictures from 1938, 1949, 1965, and 2013 here, and you can see how it used to be a lot more farmed, and over the years the ditch is silted in, trees have fallen in it. It's in terrible, terrible condition. And I mean, if the city is going to be moving out that way, the farmland isn't draining the way it should be anymore, and you can see that right by these pictures here. I think it should be cleaned out from the mouth of the ditch all the way down, because it's just getting worse and worse and worse. People, our neighbors there, Seiferts, the water went over their driveway. The fields aren't draining. I got half a crop I normally get because it flooded out back there this spring. It just needs to be fixed, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost a separate issue, but we certainly should direct staff to look at that.
Craig should look
Craig
at that.
did come out and look at it.
He did, okay.
Right away.
Well, maybe
There are several problems. One of them is undersized culvert.
Okay. And those again are kind of a separate issue, but we'd certainly be willing to send the engineer and Craig out there again to look at that further extent. From my understanding, what we're doing today is we're basically turning that section over to the city. But we still going to have control of it so we can provide drainage for the rural area.
Well, Chairman, I would like to just clarify that a little bit. The portion of the drainage ditch that will be turned over to the city will then be completely under the jurisdiction of the city. So the same complaints and concerns that landowners who are assessed would make to this board previously now would need to be made to the city, and this board would lose its jurisdiction over those portions. But the remaining portions that are not being transferred to the city are retained with the Blue Earth County Board, and those complaints could still come to you.
But they still have to follow 103E.
But the city still has to follow 103E,
right.
so it's the same process, it's just not this board of folks listening to those same concerns.
And that's why it's a better thing than because the city is obviously, it's in the city limits, and so it's a better thing than for the landowners.
So that was my concern too, was if they take more of that ditch to the east there for the school, when they
will.
When they do that they'll just clean out that section. I'll have to pay for it, and I'll get no benefit from it because it's plugged up.
Because what you're saying is you need the whole thing looked at.
Right. That's why if we're going to do something, we should do the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because
So
if
Craig,
they just do another 1,000 feet on the other side, I'm going to have to pay for it, and my land's still going to be flooded.
Right, I got you. So even if you pretend that we're not giving away this portion to the city, if a gentleman came to you or a woman came to you that owns land or is farming land out there on any of these ditches, they can say, we're having trouble with this ditch, and you would go out and assess it and decide if it needs to be cleaned out a little bit, or what needs a culvert changed, or something.
In this case, I know there was issues with culverts, and I talked to Chuck, and that's been confirmed. There's a culvert issue. There might be other problems upstream. They're not really so defined because without doing a survey, I really can't tell you these are the problems upstream. Okay. I do have some concerns about, when I was out there, about a couple other culverts to do before you could say this is what we need to do out there. We really would have to appoint an engineer to do a survey or actually do a study of the ditch.
So you'd have to have a meeting with all the people that own property out there.
Probably that would be
to the city.
Yeah.
Technically, like you would normally under the 103.
I think that would be the next step we need to take for that portion of it. Try to deal with the thing at hand at this point.
Yeah, and the fact that there's going to be a change of use for the land out there also brings up some other complexities that the landowner should have some input in. You know, to treat this like we do it with a rural ditch is probably not in the best interest of some of the landowners. Because they might want to keep those trees along there. For example, that's what happened on the other section there. They wanted the trees along there, worrying, like I said, we would. It might have been cheaper, or actually in the long run, maybe to just remove the trees. But the city's taken over. If they want to keep the trees, we're saying, okay, they can maintain it then.
Okay.
Mr. Chair and Board, just to clarify again though, the statute requires them to protect the benefit of even those ag landowners upstream. So if the city wants to keep trees, they're going to have to make sure that the system is still draining efficiently to protect that benefit. And if it can't without tree removal, then it's a shall, not a may, and the city shall remove the trees and won't have the discretion to keep them in there if they're blocking the benefit of the drainage.
Since it's a separate political division there being the city, we have to then really kind of watch it too, because we have those ag landowners in mind that we're directly.
Probably have to work together with the city.
Yeah, you'd have to work
require cooperation, correct.
You have to be keeping on it. Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yep, that's my main concern was that they were gonna take more over to the east and then clean out just that portion of it, which I'd get stuck with the bill and no benefit. And the only people that would benefit would be the people in the immediate area where it's cleaned out. So I think if we're gonna clean it out, let's go all the way back and clean it out all the way.
Good. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Glad you
comments.
kind of talked about it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Linda.
Anyone else that would like to comment? Okay, if there's no other public comment, I'll bring it back to the board for board action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion from the board?
Just that I would think we look forward to developing a relationship working on this particular issue with the city, which we haven't probably dealt with it in the same manner in the past, you know, and that some communication with Craig and
the planning and zoning
commissioners that sit on the
intergov meeting. Maybe.
Yeah.
But that's going to have to keep an eye on it.
It'll be a new topic, more or less, so we can make sure we're doing the right thing and spending dollars in a fashion that's efficient, I guess, you know.
This is the first one you've had.
Good point.
It's the first one you've had like this.
First, yeah.
It's, it is different.
Yeah, because there's some potentials here for the city's infrastructure, especially what really prompted this is work is on our next one, County Ditch 46, when all the work they've been doing under Madison Avenue.
This one's just the start of some of the ones that we're going to be passing here later that are finished. This eventually will be in the whole. This will all be in Mankato eventually.
That's correct.
Maybe not in our lifetime, but this is. So it's just setting the stage for moving it.
All the way they're building.
Exactly, it's setting the stage for what's inevitable.
Okay, and this drains into the Seward River watershed, doesn't it? This goes south all the way to the Seward River, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. This is a transfer hearing pursuant to Minnesota Statute 103E.812. Welcome to the hearing regarding the transfer of portions of Blue Earth County Ditch 46 to the City of Mankato. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the engineer's report and hear public comment regarding the transfer. We'll start with the jurisdictional documents.
Okay. The hearing notice was mailed on October 1st, 2014. The hearing notice was published in Mankato Free Press on September 30th, 2014, October 7th, 2014, and October 14th, 2014. And that's it for jurisdictional documents.
Okay, very good. We'll now hear from the engineer.
Chuck Brandel again from INS Group. Blue Earth County Ditch 46 is just under a 400-acre watershed. I believe its primary goal years ago when it was established was to drain Madison Avenue or County Road 17. Since then, portions of it have been abandoned. The outlet was legally abandoned in 1972, and I believe that was abandoned and turned over to the city as part of city storm water system. Due to upgrades to Madison Avenue, portions of the system have been modified and are currently city storm. So the original system really isn't there anymore. And then when County Road 17 was upgraded, a lot of the system was changed into storm sewer at that time. So most of the system is been changed into storm sewer. This petition is to bring in the portion of the system west of Carver Road, which is the current city limits. Most of that system has already been replaced as city storm sewer or part of the recent County Road 17 upgrades. So it's currently being maintained by the city or the county public works, and thus we'd recommend that it be transferred to the city, everything within the city boundary, at least per this petition. So, any questions on this area?
The section then is just the section from Carver Road to the other side of 22, is that it pretty much?
From Carver Road, and the watershed actually goes almost to Victory Drive.
Oh, okay, the whole line there.
Yeah,
then.
currently this area drains into what's called Lake Dorothy, just west of River Hills Mall.
Oh, by the ball, yeah.
So it's the entire, it's really the Madison Avenue development area is the drainage area that's being proposed to be taken over by the city.
Okay.
That's why it'll take a while for this other one we just talked about, in a sense, because this has been, how long has this been
Yeah,
being developed?
this maybe should have been done a little while ago.
That's kind of the point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I think we talked about this once on the board 3 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Okay, we'll open the hearing up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? Please come to the podium. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this? Please come to the podium.
I have one more comment.
Okay, go ahead.
One thing I wanted to get on the record is that the system that has been replaced, the stormwater system that's been replaced, is larger than the original ditch system. So we do have an adequate outlet.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that got on the record for this one.
Okay.
Good
Thank you.
addition, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, last time, is there anyone that would, in the audience, that would like to speak to this? Please come to the podium. If there's no public comment, I will close the comment section, bring it back to the board for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Well, this will take away one of my last ditches.
You're gonna miss that, you know.
You know, my district had very few anyway, but
You can still call it one if you want, but
And this one flows, I believe, down to Thompson Creek and goes out to the Minnesota River. So it doesn't go down to the sewer watershed, it goes to what they might call the middle Minnesota.
So, okay, if there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Okay, now we have the transfer hearing for County Ditch 98 to the City of Mankato. To consider the engineer's report and hear public comment regarding the transfer. Again, we'll start with the jurisdictional documents. Craig?
And again, the hearing notice was mailed on October 1st, 2014. The hearing notice was published in the Mankato Free Press on September 30th, 2014, October 7th, 2014, and October 14th, 2014. And that's it for jurisdictional documents.
Okay, now we'll hear from the engineer.
Chuck Brandel again with INS Group. Blue Earth County Ditch 98 is just under, it's an 800-acre watershed. It drains from east to west on the east side of Monks Avenue or County Road 8. The western portion of the system has a 24-inch tile with a grass waterway over the top of it, and then there is an open ditch as you get further east, and then there are tile branches that come in from that point. The proposed areas to be transferred are approximately 18.6 acres, which is in the Copperfield subdivision. It's currently within the city boundary, And then the outlet is currently within the city boundary. There are 3 pipes that currently cross County Road 8. This petition is to have those pipes be taken over by the city. One is a 60-inch culvert, and I believe that's not part of the drainage system that was put in as part of County Road 8. Then there's a 36-inch metal pipe culvert and a 30-inch metal culvert. So it's proposed to take those over and the 18 acres that are currently within the city. This area may be developed in the future. We may be back again, but at this point, there's approximately 18 acres that are within the city. Any questions on County Dish 98?
Just a pretty small area.
No. Yep, pretty small.
Okay, good. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now open the hearing up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? Please come to the podium, state your name. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? Please come to the podium. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this? Please come to the podium. Okay, if there's no public comment, we'll close the public portion of this hearing, bring it back to the board for action.
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, is there discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Chair.
thank you. Okay, I think we're ready for a break.
We have one more.
One more item.
Yeah, one more.
Yeah, we do.
16.
Yeah, this is just where
Yeah, that's right.
we received a petition to remove property from Blue Earth County 28 and Judicial Ditch 15. All we're asking today is for the board to set a time and date for the hearing. And I guess the recommendation was November 18th, and is it still 9:45?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll move approval for the setting the date for that November 18th at 9:45.
Second.
okay, discussion? There's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have the date set. Thank you, everyone. Now we're ready for a break.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Phil.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I appreciate your time today. I have 3 action items I want to review for the board's approval. 2 of those being in the public health arena, and the first of those involving United Way and the First Steps program that we have. The purpose of that agreement is for the United Way to engage us in a partnership model specifically to home visiting in the First Steps program. This agreement outlines the terms, nature, and scope of the services, the communication and budgeting aspects. There are no actual fiscal implications in this partnership agreement. The term of the agreement is January 1st of 15 through December 31st of 15. And then the second item, also involving the public health unit, Minnesota Department of Health Hepatitis B follow-up and immunization practices. Purpose of this grant is to provide perinatal hepatitis B case management to pregnant women and infants diagnosed with Hep B, and to complete the prophylactic treatment regarding that particular issue. Second item in that contract is immunization improvement practices, and this is where our public health staff visit the clinics face-to-face, and they ensure vaccines are properly stored. There's also an educational component to that, and follow-up from the Public Health Department if concerns are identified ongoing. All the clinics in Blue Earth County, I think the vast majority, are enrolled in this program. The rates for the Hep B program are $500 per client that there's concern about hepatitis B, and for the immunization improvement practices, it's $300 per site visit that we conduct. The term of that contract is October 1st of 14 through September 30th of 15. And then one final action item for your attention under administration is MRCI document scanning.
The purpose of this contract is with MRCI WorkSource to contract with Blue Earth County in order to provide the documentation for imaging services that we do at Human Services. This fulfills a mandate regarding our record retention schedule. This particular contract is a renewal, which represents a 2% increase in rate to the total of $41,798.48. The term of the contract is January 1 of 15 through December 31st of 15. And those are the action items I have for you today.
Okay. Have a motion to,
Move. Also moved.
is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. On that, Hep B follow-up immunization practices, it says $500 per client. What does that mean? Does that mean like per a certain site, or does that mean per person?
Per person, that's per person that's infected. So we
So
first
somebody
have
that
to-
is infected.
Right. So
So
the
it's kinda
numbers are actually quite low.
Okay,
But then we get like a flat rate.
If it's just
yes.
educational and you're giving,
Right.
what's $500 doing?
Yes,
I'm just trying to figure it
exactly
out.
right.
I can take them aside for half that price and educate them.
Right, exactly. A side business
No, but-
commissioner.
yeah,
yes,
right.
uh-huh.
No, okay, so
Yeah,
that
we're
makes
not gonna
sense.
go there.
Well, no, I know, but I'm just trying to say, so that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Somebody that is more than likely
right.
Hep B positive.
You say rare, how many?
I don't know how many come through, Commissioner, annually. It's a lot like the tuberculosis tracking that we do. Is there's kind of a case maybe once or twice every other month, where there's a concern, and then once you get into the epidemiology of it, is how bad is it? Is it really tuberculosis, or in this case, is it really Hep B? I think you get to that really small number. So the public health mission, again, is to cast a big net, try to make sure that we're assessing well, and then to narrow in on those cases that are at high risk. Tuberculosis and Hep B, the numbers are pretty small, actually. So I would say less than 10 per year.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Any more discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I have 3 items for information and discussion. Rather brief report this month, but the first of those, none of these being light matters, the first of them being the child protection update based on some of the media attention that has come based on our statewide practices and best practices regarding child protection. The governor, as you all are aware, has made this a pretty important priority in the last several months. And there really were 3 action points that I just want to check in on, make sure that you're all aware are going on. The first is that the governor appointed a Child Protection Council. They met for the first time last Monday, and this is a multidisciplinary group of folks. I know the Office of the Legislature was, of the Auditor was there, and they had published a report in 2012 about child protection practices, and part of their finding was that there was adequate assessment. That's really the bone of contention, is are we doing an okay job or an acceptable job, or aren't we? And so even that issue in particular, I understand, had some debate about it at this council meeting. So that's one key component, is that group of folks will look at best practices and try to determine if there's changes that need to be made to our statewide system. What are those changes? What are the recommendations? I think the governor and DHS will obviously be watching that closely and making sure that whatever recommendations do come clearly get funneled into our system. The second component of what the governor asked that we would do is to set up a consultation team for counties to access for additional help whenever we have a complex case. So if we're feeling stuck, or we feel like we might be spinning, or we have repeat reports that don't rise to criteria of statute, we can call this group of folks. They're actually volunteers from counties along with DHS to try to team some of those complex matters and see if there's feedback that can be offered back to the county worker on these cases. So I think that's a great idea. It can only help, and we certainly welcome that extra resource to be able to reach out and ask for some additional perspective. 2 heads are better than 1 kind of approach. And then finally, there will be random record checks from DHS 2 counties, so we'll be randomly sampled. Some of our cases, they'll ask for a review. We do this in a lot of areas of our practice, so that's not unusual for us. But again, we welcome that because we'd rather find it proactively through a random check than reactively after something bad has taken place. So again, we would have full support of all three of these elements, and I think it is a start. We'll see where it goes from here, but we're actually feeling like this attention to our practice is not all a bad thing. It obviously has come out of some very hard cases throughout the state that are, as many of you know, kind of ongoing issues of how do we practice on a regular basis. So I wanted to provide the board some sense of that and drill into that just a little, with a little more detail. The second item that I had for your attention was just a response to some of the dialogue we had at the recent work session, and we talked about detox costs, and we wanted to provide some sense of where the revenue side of that equation was. And the graphic that's included in your board report shows the costs and then the revenues and how the revenues come in against the costs. So the red line shows the revenue, and you'll see that as we discussed, it's a small percentage of the overall cost, but it does matter. We do try to work hard to do recoveries. As we discussed at the work session, the payers for detox have not been a historical standard to pay for detox, so there's that issue if you do happen to have insurance. And then there's people that hit our sliding fee scale that go to detox that don't have the resources based on income. They might have anywhere from 0 to a small portion of the bill that they pay as well. That would all be contained in this line. You obviously look at the gap between the two lines, and that's our true cost as we discussed at the work session.
Just curious, so the reason you have more revenue early in the year is because some of the programmatic dollars that come in, do you think, or is it because that's when you're doing more work towards collections? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out why.
Yeah, I think there was some anomaly there about how it works. You'll see the third bullet under that first graphic. Revenues are inflated February, March, April. So is that kind of what you're talking about, Commissioner?
Yeah, they're real high there.
Right.
And I thought maybe that's because the county share comes in then.
We're actually able to do tax recapturing, and so that's one of the advantages of having our governmental arm, and so that's why you see that blip up during that time. Yep, so.
The revenue is all insurance or private pay recoveries. There's no state or federal dollars going into this revenue stream. So I think it's significant to note that over a third of our expenses are covered by insurance or private pay fee recoveries.
And it always hasn't been that good, has it?
No. I think over the last 5 to 10 years, it's probably, we've made a significant effort to go after those private insurance companies and try and get those recoveries there.
And that's the questions I've received from the public is, you know, when you're talking about detox costs is, you know, first of all, can't you bill their insurance company? And we do.
We do.
Second of all, can't you send them a bill? And we do
which
that.
we also do, yes.
Okay, then if they do not pay for that, now you just spoke about the tax recovery, but is there other, you know, small claims court, or is that too cost prohibitive?
Right, we do have a billing collection service that we can turn that over to, but that will age out eventually too after about 5 years. You know, a lot of times those write-offs that come, but there's probably, the revenues start with what insurance you have. Then you bill the party in particular and see how they hit the sliding fee. That's our part. Then you use revenue recapture, then you turn it over to collections. So that's usually the pattern.
Now, and being in the police department, I understand there's a few people that use detox much more than others, but we have a very high population of college students, which I'm sure we have causes our detox costs to go up.
Right.
I also understand that if you have a you know, judgment against you, it's really hard to get loans for a job after you graduate from college.
That's right.
So, you know, placing that kind of, you know, that on a college student for a night of stupidity, they may be intent on paying that off instead of having to worry about trying to buy that house after they're graduated, because they can't, because they have a you know. So is that, I mean, I don't know, how hard are we working at doing this?
Yeah, I would say quite hard. I'd say those levels that we just talked to is a fairly aggressive posture that we take on, because we do feel like, even though, to Bob's comment, that I think our recoveries is something that actually might be a little bit pleasing, in that we do get a significant chunk back through our efforts. It's not an easy population to recover from. So I think we're very aggressive, Commissioner, in how we do try to chase those dollars, and really that cost that goes to the taxpayers, and to try to put that onus on the folks that are making some poor decisions is certainly, I think, reflected in our practices. I do think you look at the tails of it, and there's a lot of complexity, of course, to every one of these programs. But if it is a college student, you're an example. They have some rights to decide how they're going to pay their bills, and then usually mom or dad or both are in the picture as well. And the communication between those parties is, does that college student want to keep that information from their parents, which may indeed be their right if they can pay, but then they get into a hard situation, and there are some deeper pockets often with the family if they go into that relationship. So I think what I'm really arguing for is that it's not only a community issue about how do we chase and how aggressive are we, but it's also a family issue about how do we take responsibility for our actions. And I think those levels of action, as a young college student might not be very motivated to pay that bill until you start to play that all the way out and realize their credit score is low, they get tax intercept, or mom and dad might find out at some point. And those are all elements that push on this as well.
Well, in our case, we need to pursue that, because what they're doing is they're taking taxpayers' money away from everybody in the county.
Exactly. Right.
You know, when they do this and they don't pay, they're taking, you know, they're hurting every one of us here and everybody in Blue Earth County.
Right.
So I think it's our responsibility to be fiscally responsible, is to pursue that and make sure that that's taken care of.
I appreciate that. I think it is reflected in our practice. I do support that framework. And I certainly believe that in some ways, you look at healthcare costs, there's things that come to us and to families and to individuals that we can't prevent. Here's an area where we can certainly prevent what choices we make. And making a healthy choice, knowing where that boundary is, where how much is too much, would prevent this problem altogether and stop this shift of burden onto the taxpayers, as you suggest. So that's how we look at it, same as you, Commissioner. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
What is the average cost of a stay at the detox center?
Well, the detox per diem, it's usually 2 days, and so the per diem, I think, is right around $300, and so
$600
just that's a ballpark figure.
600 to 700. So I mean, a college kid getting a bill for $600, a lot of money.
Right. Exactly.
You bet.
But it's a responsibility of them.
It's a responsibility.
So. Good discussion.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for the follow-up. Yeah, that was just
You bet. Thank you for the inquiry. I think it was good for us to match those two worlds between our expenses and revenues. There's a net issue, as Commissioner Struenberg indicated, about taxpayer dollars in everything we do.
Has there ever been any data collection, you know, on, I know it's a lot of work to do this, but you know, if were they drinking independently, you know, at home? Were they at a party? Were they at a certain bar in Mankato or a certain restaurant? Were they, you know, I suppose it'd be hard to track some of that down, but at some point it'd be interesting, I think, because it goes on and on and on. And if there's some irresponsible business owners, I think that's something that needs to be addressed too.
Absolutely.
Which might help,
Right.
you know, with some of these things. And
Right.
I think the city council is trying to address that. They're looking at restructuring the liquor license laws.
Yes.
Which would require food to be served, or you're gonna pay through the nose for your license.
Interesting.
Because I think food does make a difference, you know, what people drink.
Right.
And having it available.
Right.
And a percentage of your sales being food.
Right.
Minneapolis does that, I know, and it's really worked out well in Minneapolis, so.
Those three areas are the drivers, and certainly the commissioners have law enforcement background, probably talk about this even better than I could as far as what the breakout is, but there's no doubt, you know, the establishments that have liquor licenses that serve, that's a big pocket of concern that feeds some of the detox problem. There's no doubt about that. The situation at our colleges where there are house parties or even street parties, and you'll see sometimes that being a big wave of people that go to detox when there are any kind of interventions from law enforcement. And then that final category, which sometimes we minimize, the concerns can be just as much, but when people are drinking in their own homes, as we know, some of the domestic violence and domestic issues can come up, and they're probably a little more isolated than the other two, but no less severe as far as how those might look when they come to law enforcement's attention. So I think each of those kind of three components are always represented. Yeah, it would be an interesting statistic to understand a little more about that profile, and I don't think we have that readily available, Commissioner, but I would also be very interested to know more about kind of the diagnostic or kind of breakdown of the dissection of those different areas that kind of feed the whole detox issue. Yeah.
The majority of our people that go to detox come from law enforcement.
I would say that is the case, Commissioner, yes. Yeah, it's pretty rare that law enforcement isn't involved in the detoxification part of what we do.
So a lot of those things are being addressed already with the social host ordinances.
Yes.
Not only with the city of Mankato, with Blue Earth County.
Yes.
And who's providing this alcohol?
Big issue, right. I appreciate the discussion and really the resource that you all represent as well. I do think it's a community issue. I do think it's a family issue, and then ultimately it's a personal choice to go over that line where you put yourself at risk, and there are natural consequences to that, that's for sure, and they come at a high price. The final item is pretty straightforward. I probably will not spend a lot of time on the details because they're pretty intuitive, but the foster care statistics for our adult population. I think the board's aware that in the children's side of the equation, we are very dependent on family foster care. On the adult side, it's kind of reversed, where the corporate foster care providers are the ones that have the vast majority of the beds that we have in our community. So you'll see that kind of along the top of the graphic of the corporate homes, how many homes, the percent of all beds. You'll see that there are family foster care providers in the adult world, but that they represent a much smaller percentage. Probably the most important and only thing I will emphasize on this graphic, unless there are further questions, is just our hub identity as a community is certainly represented maybe in this data more than any other place in human services, and you'll see kind of the imports from other counties and people that choose to live here in our community, which we certainly welcome, but what comes with that is the amount of resource that you need to support those individuals. And so you'll see a lot of adult foster care in Blue Earth County. You see that we are certainly represented, as we should be, very highly in the number of consumers served. But as you go down the list, you see that there's actually a very healthy representation from many, many counties. When we've talked about the MnChoices change, that upfront assessment tool that's being used with the disability population and long-term care, these folks, after the Blue Earth County number, will all be people that we, at this point, are going to need to reassess. And as new people come in through these different counties, we'd also be responsible to assess those as well. So the positions you've supported is about the volume that's represented in the number of counties of financial responsibility that are represented in Blue Earth County. So you'll see how those numbers really do add up in a hurry, and that we are very dependent on the corporate foster care providers, appreciate the work, and that they are a pretty important part of our infrastructure in our community. That's really all I had today.
Good.
Okay, Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Very
your time.
informative.
Good to
Thank
see you
you.
all. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, next up would be the Human Resources Agenda, item number 3 in your packet. Here we have authorization to initiate recruitment for 2 program coordinators in our public health unit. This is a desire of the Human Services Department to address some our staff to supervisor ratio issues that we have there by delegating some of the program responsibility to these program coordinator positions. In both of these cases, we would create promotional opportunities for staff but not backfill the vacancies that are created, so we would not be changing our overall FTE complement but rather trying to address some programmatic shortcomings that we have. So the first one is a program coordinator in the WIC and family programs within the public health unit.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved.
The second one then is a program coordinator in the waiver and family programs portion, again in the public health department.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion.
You get those 2 guys?
I got it all.
Good.
Good, Jeff.
Stereo.
Yeah.
Yes, stereo.
Any discussion?
I just have a question. On this waivered services, is that what it is, waivered services?
Yeah, it's the elderly waiver, so
It
working
is.
with senior populations.
Okay, and we've hired some other staff in that area, or replaced staff, I think, in the last year. There isn't a program coordinator there now, you mean, or they just need an additional one?
There is not one now.
Just a supervisor?
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's correct.
No, thank you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The informational items there indicate that we have filled a female custody officer position, and then we have 3 employees that have completed their 6 months probationary period and are eligible for a salary adjustment.
Very good.
Item number 4 in your packet then, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, is a renewal of a grant for the snowmobile grooming grant agreement with the DNR. This is a pass-through grant that we give to the snowbirds of Amboy. The amount of the grant is $38,190.97, and so recommending approval of this grant agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Just a question. So these are trails that they maintain or something down in the Amboy area or something?
Right, they are snowmobile trails. They are then responsible for maintaining those trails, and there are certain standards or criteria that must be met to receive this full payment. So there are progress payments in terms of their work.
Majority of these trails are on private land,
That's, I
but
think I heard,
are
yeah.
available for public use as long as these standards are met.
I see.
So,
They go right along the river kind of then, more or less, or?
they tend to go along the rivers, the more scenic routes. They connect the different communities for the trail riders and stuff. It's quite an interesting program. The
Yeah.
trail actually runs through my farm. So
It does.
It's very interesting. So,
Do they stop and get hot cider in the wintertime at your place then?
Yeah.
or,
Nope.
You know?
Nope. They tend to stay
No
away
fires
from.
with
They
your-
tend to
No.
stay away from the residences.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, so it's one thing it directs them into. Directs them into quieter areas.
So if the commissioners are going riding, we're stopping.
Yeah, we're stopping, because he
Yeah.
kind of ignored that, so we're
Well, I
gonna.
mean, I saw that up north. I know they've got trails that are just
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of miles
Oh,
of
yeah.
trails that go all over the
Yeah.
place. You know,
Yeah.
they're like this. They're maintained and
Mhm.
they go from community to community and they go through the woods and all over the place up there. So,
Well, it's statewide, so.
yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 5 in your packet is the 3rd quarter donations covering July through September. You'll see that we again are continuing to receive donations for our library services, especially the $1,000 from the Crystal Study Club. We also received some programming donations from the United Way as well as some resources from LeSueur County and the Human Services Department. So that makes up the majority of the cash donations. I would also draw your attention to the last line. Alliance Pipeline donated $2,500 to the Sheriff's Department for weather kits. In terms of in-kind donations, again, with the summer reading program, we were very fortunate to receive support from a number of organizations in the community for our summer reading program. So those are noted on the second page of this report.
And they must use those for like certificates and things like that, and it's,
prizes,
you know,
and encouragement to children. Yep.
Nice.
And over 3,000 kids served in the summer reading program.
Yeah, I know. It's nice.
Phenomenal.
So we're asking acceptance of this donation report.
I'll move acceptance.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
Item number 6 in your packet then is the financial status report through September 30th of this year. This is 3/4 of the way through our budgetary year. You'll see that our total revenues sit at 62.4% of our budget. So again, when the second half taxes are received, we will be pretty much on target for our budget from a revenue standpoint. The expenditure side, we sit at 69.1%, so just a little bit under our budget at that 3/4 mark. I'll draw your attention to the contracts and fees line. That's obviously where the majority of our Public Works Department expenditures flow through, and so as we're entering the tail end of the construction season, we see that line coming very close to our budgeted target at this point. So all in all, I think things are looking good. We have total revenues of $53.5 million and total expenses at $59.4 million. So we do show a deficit at this point, but again, those second half taxes will start to roll in October and November.
Very good.
In terms of the enterprise fund, which is the Ponderosa landfill, you'll see that the total revenues to date are a little over $2 million and total expenses $1.7 million, so that's sitting in good shape. The second page shows our cash and investment balances. Our total available funds sit at $40 million. Our 6-month target is $42.4 million. But our total county funds then are just a hair over $100 million after all the dedicated funds are added in. Be happy to answer any questions from the board.
So how does that, I mean, I know we have the money in the bank, but we talked a little bit at the work session the other day about funding some of these projects with general fund. How will that affect our 6-month operating needs?
Well, we would most likely have to transfer from some of these dedicated funds or commit some of the available funds for those specific targeted projects.
Okay.
So that will change this picture in terms of how we categorize those funds if we were to say that those funds needed to be spent on a specific project.
Because those will be real dollars getting spent.
Right.
If we decide to do some of these projects, so that'll change this.
Much like that payoff of the lease revenue bond.
Right.
We have $12 million programmed for when that lease period comes up, where we will be writing a check for $12.2 million.
Okay, thank you.
This is going to ask or mention something too we've talked about before. It relates to this because it's still kind of in the research phase, you know, looking at the development of the counties, the local counties, looking at a middle Minnesota river watershed district, or not a district, just a watershed organization. And they were thinking, you know, 1 full-time, 1 part-time staff would possibly be, you know, $80,000, could be as high as $90-some thousand. Nicollet County has said they'll take on half because they're the largest portion.
Really?
And they've agreed. I mean, they haven't made a motion, what do you call it, a resolution, but they've verbalized that they've got pretty close to full board support for paying half. LeSueur County sounds like they're on board for maybe paying a quarter. And they're looking to Blue Earth County for maybe close to a quarter, maybe a little less because of the mix would be in there, but we have a good sized portion of it. So I don't know if that would be something that has been discussed as far as our commitment level. I'm not looking for a resolution or anything, I just wanted to bring it up. This is something that's ongoing, and they would probably come to something sometime next year about what we might be looking at doing in 14, starting something in 14. If they do, if they move ahead with a middle.
You mean this year? Yeah.
I mean, excuse me, 15. Excuse me, 15.
Do you have
Sorry.
an idea what you were talking about? If you deal with a quarter, you're saying Nicollet was gonna.
Ours could be, well, ours could be $20,000 or 25, something there for staffing.
At this point, we haven't incorporated anything into the budget for that,
Okay.
but we certainly could.
Well, that would come out of the.
Could we take that out of water? fund?
Water, recycling, whatever it is.
We could look at
Look at
that.
that, see if that's a avenue.
I think that's what Nicollet County's doing. They're gonna take it out of there.
Oh, they did talk about that at the joint meeting, didn't they?
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
talked
they
about
did.
using
Yep.
that
They're gonna take it out of there.
Right now, we are using up all the incoming
We are.
water management fees, but, we could certainly adjust some things.
Or do a portion or something maybe.
Well, it's interesting to hear that they're moving forward with it, because they really
I know.
didn't seem like they had consensus at the joint
I
meeting.
know,
we
I know,
had.
I know.
So,
That's just the latest update. And
that's good.
Well, y'all know when it comes to a board meeting, things could change.
Yeah, and there wasn't much discussion about it, but that
No.
didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Good update.
Okay, I believe we're to the end of our agenda.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I have a motion to recess to the Prairie Bach Restaurant
So
in Cambridge.
That's in this county then, right? Prairie
It's in
Bach.
Blue Earth County, yes.
It's in
I'm glad you brought that up.
Second.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.